We've always got time for more common knowledge in this house, where I'll take a look at 10 common Magic the Gathering cards, tell you are they any good in the Pauper format or not. Let's see what our first card of the day is. Hopefully something good. Helionaut, which we've done before. It's not good. It's not good, but we have done it before, so I will just skip it. Llanowar Dead, though, this is a card I have some nostalgia for as well, but we haven't done it. Pretty positive. Black and green Golgari mana, we call that, for a 2/2 zombie elf that can tap to add a black. So it's a grizzly bear and a Llanowar elf put together, but it's also in black, and it makes black. That's kind of cool. This is not a very good creature. It's wild to me that it's only been in Apocalypse. This feels like a classic card to me, and something that they should have printed a billion times. Now, it's only 16 cents for a copy. It's not like this thing is rare to get, but this just feels like classic Magic to me. Like, look at it's a zombie, it's an elf, taps for black. It's like a Llanowar elf, but it's a zombie, so it taps for black now. And zombies are generally 2/2s, so you give it a little toughness and power boost. I dig it. I think this card is so cool. Great cube card, great card in general, very nostalgic card. I love Llanowar Dead. It's not good in Pauper. Don't play it. Let's go ahead and give it I'll give it a 2.5, I guess. It does ramp you. It does ramp you. Yeah. It survives an Electrickery. Think about that. It's still not very good. Nomad's Encore is a single white mana for a 1/1 core Nomad Soldier, and you can pay 0 for this activated ability and have the next 1 damage that would be dealt to this creature this turn dealt to target creature you control instead. So this guy can take a big block and then redistribute that damage over all of your creatures. If you've played the Pokemon trading card game, like the original one, before EX Pokemon or before supporter cards, when we just called them trainers and we could play as many of them as we wanted to. The Alakazam deck from the base set, not exactly the same, but it had a way of distributing damage counters over the rest of your Pokemon. And that's kind of what Nomad Encore does, except in Magic, the damage goes away at the end of the turn. So it is, if you have enough creatures out and those creatures are tanky enough, you can spread out the damage to the point where your opponent just kind of can't do anything. Now, if that creature has trample, that doesn't really work on the Nomad, because you only have to assign 1 point of damage to the Nomad before the rest can trample over. That's not quite as good. If you are going wide against a Nomad's Encore, the Nomad's Encore can only block one of the guys unless you put something on that allows it to block more, which there are cards. I don't think there's anything in common, but there are ways of having a creature block more than one creature. This isn't good. It's not. Originally from Stronghold. I think I have a copy of this. I don't have a Mystery Booster 2 copy. I do dig the Future Sight border. That is one of my favorite borders. One of my favorite ways of looking at Magic cards. This card isn't that good. It's not. I mean, it was in a World Champ deck. Don't get me wrong. You got to put some respect on its name. But when we're talking about Pauper, you could kind of make an argument that, if you're going up against Tolarian Terror or something like that, maybe you can redistribute this damage enough to enough other creatures that you can kind of just continue stopping it in its tracks. And if you can get to the point where you don't have to chump block against a Tolarian Terror with your fleet of little creatures, now maybe you're onto something. Maybe you can take that out. But that again is kind of just one creature that you're dealing with, or one kind of creature that you're dealing with. And hey, don't get me wrong, there are big creatures in lots of decks. Maelstrom Colossus or Generous Ent, or I'm trying to think of things that don't have trample. Gurmag Angler, I suppose. There are ways, there are creatures that this is pretty good at stopping, but it does require you to have quite a bit of setup on your end to be able to be ready for that. So it's nostalgic, it's fun, but it's not particularly great. I'll give it a 2.4. Saber-tooth Moose Lion, 4 and double green for a 7/7 Elk Cat with reach and forest cycling 2. All right, we gotta play the game here. We generous Ent. We just talked about it. You got to spell it right though. You do have to spell it right. Generous. Oh, I really messed it up. There we go. God. Generous Ent. So let's look at these two. 6 mana, 7/7, reach, forest cycling 2. Versus 6 mana, slightly easier to cast because it's not double green, it's only single green. Also has reach, 5/7, so you are losing a couple points of power on it. You get forest cycling 1, cycling's a little cheaper. And when this thing enters, you create a food token. So it does make an artifact when it comes into play. It can gain you life. So that is something to consider as well. The thing that you need to look at is this is forest cycling 1 and this is forest cycling 2. And that is, unfortunately, the game. Like that's it. Like Generous Ent wins because you can have these forest cyclers go and find a land, 1 mana to go find a land. It's just better. It's just better. You can do this on turn 1, and so you can keep risk your hands because you know you only need a 1-lander because this guy will help you find that second land that you can play on turn 2, and then maybe you're golden at that point. And this guy, you need to have those 2 lands. You need to have those 2 lands. You can't forest cycle until your second turn, and you can forest cycle on your first turn with the Ent. And yeah, the stats are better. It doesn't matter. It really just doesn't matter. This is not nearly as good as Generous Ent. It's one of the reasons that I definitely think that the Lord of the Rings land cyclers were a mistake. They're too good. Or it's not even necessarily that they're too good. It's that they've invalidated all the other land cycling creatures here. Because when you have land cycling for 2, you're never going to pay that. You're always going to go for the Lord of the Rings ones because for all the reasons I just mentioned. So it kind of sucks that all of them have made these cards functionally worthless to you, but that's exactly what they've done. I don't necessarily think they should be banned out of the format. And even if they were, I don't think that necessarily brings these things into prominence. But there's an argument to play these in a scenario like that you will never have as long as the Lord of the Rings ones are in, unless they make more 1-mana cyclers in future sets. And I don't think they're going to do that because I think they realize how much of a mistake the Lord of the Rings ones were. It's a weird balance because you also don't want to give some of these decks 8 versions of the cyclers in single colors. So if dredge decks already have the trolls and the Ents, so they already have 8 of these, do you really want to give them 12 or 16 versions of those to make the Exhume even nastier? I've seen dredge decks even play the Oliphant and play red basically so they can get Oliphants as well and have even more of those land cyclers. The land cyclers are so good, and these land cyclers just aren't. When you have to pay 2 for this effect, it's not nearly as good. I'll give it it's still a good card, right? It's still an early turn play. Turn 2 is still early in the game. As fast as Pauper is going right now, turn 2 is still an early thing to do. This can't be countered. It's done at instant speed. Like, this is all good stuff. And you can put this in your graveyard and potentially do something with that later. But then it's also a late game play. Being able to pay the 6, put this thing out, and hey, now you have a 7/7 with reach. That's a difficult thing to deal with. So I like the modality of cards like this. They just have cards that are better, and that sucks. That kind of does suck. It makes it really tough to score something like this. I'm going to give it a... I'm going to give it a 2.7. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2.7. We'll argue about the Lord of the Rings land cyclers another time, but we will have that conversation. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, Nasty End, 1 and a black for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. If the sacrificed creature was legendary, draw 3 cards instead. You know, we have so many of these 2 mana sacrifice a thing, draw 2. And most of the ones that get played in Pauper these days are ones that can sacrifice creatures or artifacts. And we like that because we can sacrifice clue tokens or map tokens or things like that to be able to still get those. But the idea that you can draw a 3rd card as long as the sacrifice creature is legendary... A few sets ago, we'd go, well, that doesn't matter. You know, we're not playing Joven in our Pauper decks just to be able to draw a 3rd card. But now we've got so many legends that are at common. It's not inconceivable to think that you sacrifice an Orokusaki and you draw 3 cards. And 3 cards is... I know it's only 1 more card, but it's a lot more cards than 2. It is crazy to be able to pay 2 mana and spend this spell out of your hand and to get 3 new cards in your hand. That's amazing. You would have to build the deck in a very specific way to be able to take advantage of all the legendary creatures. And there aren't so many legendary creatures that are completely Pauper viable. And even the ones that are really only get played because they are so good. You know, Orokusaki draws you cards just from doing damage. That's really darn good. Leonardo can do incredible amounts of damage. That's really good. Raphael is a pinger effect, which, you know, you want to keep on the board so it can keep pinging. You struggle a little bit to think, okay, what are the legendary creatures that I'm willing to sacrifice? I don't know. We have legendary creatures that you could play. Are they that are sacrificable, that are easier to get rid of, that you're willing to give up, I mean. But do we have enough of those that are generally better or around the same power level as the cards that you're going to get replaced with? I don't know. I don't think you do. And, you know, there's the drawback to legendary cards of not being able to play more than one, so on the board at a time. So, I don't know. It's enticing, though, isn't it? So you still always can draw the 2, but potentially drawing that 3rd card in the right situation, that can be game winning. I think this is one to maybe grab a couple copies of and be ready for. Because if Wizards continues the way they've been going, and oh boy, they are. We haven't seen all the Marvel cards yet, but once we do, and I'll do my Pauper set review of that, I have no doubt there will be a lot of common legends that are coming in that set. And, you know, it'll be the same with Star Trek. It'll be the same with The Hobbit. We are going to be finding more and more of these legendary creatures of common, as much as I hate it. And the more of those you get, the more Nasty End actually ends up being a pretty good card that you start to have to consider. So I'm not like you have to speculate and buy this while it's cheap. It's going to remain cheap. Don't get me wrong. It will stay this price no matter what. I'm almost positive. But I think the value of the card itself will actually go up. So I want to give it a score that says, like, hey, we're not playing this right now, but also a score that says, hey, this has room to grow. And for that, I'll give it a 3.3. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Cavern Stomper 4 and double green for a dinosaur. That's also 7/7. Where have we seen that before? When this creature enters, you scry 2, and then you could pay 3 and a green, and have this creature can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less this turn. It's kind of interesting. You know, another 6 mana 7/7. Doesn't have that forest cycling on it, but you get a pretty solid creature here. Scries 2 when it enters, and at this point, you know, when you're playing a card like this, you are probably getting close to running out of cards in your hand. So a Scry 2, giving that card selection, might be useful to know, hey, I'm gonna get a good draw or two in the next couple turns while this guy is out. I like the activated ability. Gets around some of the lower power go wide deck stuff. That's all right. So they got to block it with something real. That can be useful. 4 mana for that ability is quite expensive, but it is something to consider. I think mostly this is just not quite good enough. It is a limited bomb, I suppose, but it's there's just so many better cards. This thing eats removal pretty quickly, and then you feel bad that you spent all that mana on it, especially if you've paid the extra 4 for the ability. Then you really feel bad that you've spent 10 whole mana on this card before it does anything, and it still died. So I can't give it anything great, but I will give it a 2 points. It's a 2.5. Yeah. Next up, Metropolis Sprite, 1 and a blue for a 1/2 fairy rogue with flying. You can pay a blue, and this creature gets +1/-1 until end of turn. So you can turn this 1/2 into a 2/1, which is like a sneaky snacker. Except you have to keep paying for the sneaky snacker, and it doesn't come back from the graveyard. So it's actually a whole lot worse than sneaky snacker. Still, a 1/2 flyer is able to block a little bit more if you're going in the mirror against fairies. This is able to block other fairies. That's okay, but nothing that it does is really all that good. No, this is a pretty bad card, especially when you consider all the other fairies you have available to you. This pales in comparison to basically all of them. I will give this thing a 2.1. Scary Firewalker, 2 and a red for a 3/2 human berserker with boast. For a single mana, you can exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. That's pretty good for red decks to just have that burn through their hands very quickly. To just have a thing that goes, hey, you know, we can give you more cards. You know, you only get so long to play them, but you can do it. You can also do this at instant speed. Oh, sorry. I need to read more of the boast. Never mind. Hang on. You can activate only if this creature attacked this turn and only once each turn. Never mind. If I read the rest of the card, I would have known. I have not boasted many creatures in my time, so I was unfamiliar with that. Okay, this is much worse than. Let's be real. This thing has to attack. It's a 3/2, so it's pretty easy to block. But let's say it does get through. And now, okay, I've got an empty hand. I can pay 1. I can exile a card and play it that turn. Can't do it more than once. Can't do it on my opponent's turn because this creature didn't attack. Yeah, okay. I was actually thinking we found maybe a hidden gem here if we could do this on your opponent's turn, but no, we can't. No, this isn't very good. I'll give this thing a 2.4, I guess. A little sad. Sage's Knowledge is a Portal 3 Kingdoms card, 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Return target sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. I mean, it's a way to get another spell back, but it does just it's not good enough, right? We think of the shenanigans that we can do. There are plenty of ways to get your spells back from your graveyard to your hand. You've got the mnemonic wall. You've got the Archaeomancer. You've got the red one, the Ardent Elementalist. That's what it's called. So you have ways of getting those back on other cards, and those were all creature cards that I mentioned. And those cards can be blinked. They can be ephemerated specifically because you can get the a sorcery back when you ephemerate it for the first time, and then when the rebound on ephemerate happens, you can go grab the ephemerate from your graveyard, put that back into your hand, and so you can keep that loop going on forever. And that's strong. We see a lot of decks, a lot of grindy control decks that will do that and just lock the game down at that point. Really hard to stop them once they have that loop going. But a one-time, hey, get a sorcery back, it's not quite good enough. Sorry, Guan Yu. That's even your ghostly spirit in this image is not enough to sway me. But yeah, man. Yeah, Guan Yu, like after he died, according to Romance of the Three Kingdoms, that's a historical fiction book, so I don't think this really happened. But his people thought they saw his spirit, and he still protected the lands even after death. Guan Yu kicked ass. Next card is Living Tempest, 4 and a blue for a 3/3 flash flying elemental creature. Flash and flying's cool. 5 mana is not cool. 5 mana is really not cool. And we've seen flash flying creatures before that do well. Ilvoy Galeblade, it's kind of a flex card in fairies, in mono blue fairies. I play it in my mono blue fairies. Other people play Humbling Elder or something like that. But I do appreciate a flash flyer that can then sacrifice itself to draw a card. This guy though, at five mana, flash flying 3/3 is nice, but for 5 mana, no. I like the art. Not a big fan of the rest of it. We'll give it a 2. I am going to be stingy. I'm giving it a 2. The mana cost is just too much, and this is not a color that ramps well. So I don't think this really has much of a place. Branded Brawlers, single red mana for a 2/2 human soldier, which good rate. What's wrong with it? This creature can't attack if defending player controls an untapped land. Okay. And this creature can't block if you control an untapped land. Well, okay. This is pretty quintessentially red of what if we gave you a good creature or good stats? What if we give you good stats for a cheap cost? But there is a pretty massive downside that forces you to either put the game in a very specific situation, or you need to build your deck in a way that makes it work, or in this case, you both have to play a little bit differently, and your opponent has to play, or potentially is forced to play a little bit differently to stop you. That's interesting. I do like that my opponent feels like they have to hold back mana, which means they're not contributing to the board as much. And maybe my other creatures, because this guy won't be able to attack if they're leaving untapped land available. So maybe it forces them into a situation where you can get in with a bunch of other guys, or they think they need to contribute to the board to stop a guy like this, so they're tapping out, and then this guy can swing in. I don't know. There's something to consider here. But I also don't necessarily like putting, even though it's a bit of a, I guess in modern Magic terms, we'd call it a villainous choice at this point. But you are putting them in a situation where they lose a little bit either way. But you're also losing a little bit either way, not only with the not being able to block and forcing to keep some of your own lands up. Generally, you probably don't care. You're in red. You're going aggressive, but knowing that, hey, I played this guy and now I can't attack with him. Yeah, the opponent had to do something a little bit different on their turn, but if you're red and you're playing really cheap aggressive creatures like this, it's because you want to do damage to them quickly. and not doing damage to them and getting them further into the late parts of the game, the mid and late game, that's where you don't do as well. And you are kind of just, with a card like this, you're forcing your opponent to make the whole game go longer, but that's not necessarily to your advantage. So I think overall, this guy might be bad. I was kind of talking through it. I had to think about it a little bit more, but I think overall, I'm going to say this guy is bad. And I will give him a... I'm still going to give him a 2.1. It is a 1-mana 2/2. You cannot deny that. But it has enough drawbacks that I don't want to give it anything more than that. Bonus card time. What do we have for the bonus card? Pass Wall Adept. 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human wizard with 2 and a blue to make a target creature not be able to be blocked this turn. That's an okay ability. Costs too much, but it is an okay ability. A 2-mana 1/3 blocks a decent amount of things. It's a wizard if you need wizards in your deck for some reason. I mean, it's a human as well, but wizard has maybe a few more options from a typal kind of synergy setup. If it was an advisor, maybe we'd be talking. Maybe we wouldn't. Advisor decks, the Persistent Petitioner's decks aren't really swinging in, so they don't need a guy that can make something unblockable. Cool card in Commander, I suppose, where you could politics this and use it on your an opponent's creature and have them swing into a different opponent. That's fun. But from a Pauper standpoint, not particularly worth it. I don't think you want to spend that much to make a creature unblockable, especially on another creature. You know, if you play Escape Tunnel or something like that, that makes a little bit more sense, but not as much here. We'll give this thing... I'll give it a 2.5. It does block a decent amount. It's pretty cheap to get on the board to begin with. It has an ability that can be relevant in the game when you're playing it. So I don't know. It's average, maybe even slightly better than average, but I think 2.5 makes sense to me. Thanks so much for joining. We'll catch you on the next one.